Listen up, folks, some important information and a very important update because a bipartisan group of lawmakers has proposed a new pandemic relief package to be passed by the end of the year. Now, to discuss the potential ripple effect that it could have on small businesses and families is the Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Neil Bradley. Neil, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Now, this could have a major impact if it is passed. So what will happen if another relief package is not passed by the end of the year?
Well, in a word, it would be catastrophic for small businesses all across Jacksonville and Florida, and for families all across the United States. One of the things that we see going on in the data is that for a lot of small businesses, it looks a lot like this past spring at the height of the pandemic. Over 30% of small businesses in Florida last month reported a reduction in revenue. 8% of Florida small businesses had to reduce the number of employees last month. It's the holiday season. It's when they should be ramping up, expanding hours, and they are suffering. And the pandemic relief that Congress provided this past spring, well, that's long run out. So if there is an additional assistance coming from Washington, a lot of those small businesses are going to permanently close.
Wow. Okay, so now let's talk about timing. If this takes longer to pass than we would like, what could that mean here in Florida?
Well, if it takes longer, it's going to be a lot of unnecessary suffering. We just talked about small businesses. Let's talk about families. There are 484,000 families in Florida who will be cut off their federal unemployment benefits on December 26th if Congress doesn't act. That means they're not able to pay their rent, their mortgage, their utilities, not able to put food on the table. This is real suffering. 484,000 Floridians who will be left out in the cold if Congress fails to come together. This would be needless suffering for them, for small businesses, for the Jacksonville area. And the sad thing is it's all preventable. If Congress simply comes together, compromises, gets a deal done, we can provide relief for those families and for those businesses on Main Street.
So those are the what ifs on the pessimistic end. So let's kind of flip the coin and look at the positive aspect here. What will the legislation in its current form mean for small businesses and families if it does pass?
Well, Jamie, I'm an optimist, and I'm optimistic about Congress's chances, and I'm also optimistic for what it means for businesses there in Jacksonville. What it means is another round of Paycheck Protection Program loans. That's the ability to get the money that those small businesses need to keep their employees paid. We just heard the great news about the vaccine. We know that the end of this pandemic is around the corner. So one more additional round of assistance from Congress means that these small businesses are going to be able to get to the other side. And when we get to the other side of this pandemic, I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to getting back out there, going to restaurants, going to amusement parks, doing all the things that we love to do. When we're doing that, when we're back out there on those shops on Main Street, the economy is going to boom. It's just a question of being able to get there. If we can get there today in Congress, those businesses across Jacksonville are going to be there when springtime comes. And from there, I think it's nowhere but up.
Now, the bipartisan nature of this new legislation is very important. First of all, why is that? And is that even possible in our current political climate?
You know, bipartisanship's a necessity. In D.C. today, Republicans control the Senate and the White House, but Democrats control the House of Representatives. So if a package isn't bipartisan, it isn't getting enacted into law. You know, for far too long, compromise has been a four-letter word in Washington. It's not a four-letter word. It's a necessity. But I'll tell you what I've been telling lawmakers on Capitol Hill. If they don't find a way to compromise and bridge their differences, they're going to hear a lot of four-letter words from their constituents when they go back home. And so hopefully that's a little boost of encouragement for them to get the job done.
Where can our viewers get more information to definitely stay informed on the upcoming transitions with the new legislation?
So if your viewers will go to uschamber.com, you can do two really important things. You can learn about the pandemic relief legislation and what it'll mean for Florida. But more importantly, with a click of a button, you can contact your two senators and your member of Congress and demand action. Remember, these members of Congress, they work for us, the people. We ought to let them know what we need when we need it. So go to uschamber.com, make your voice heard, and help us get this pandemic relief across the finish line.
Thank you, Neil, for this valuable information in context on what could be some much needed help for families and businesses across the country. Of course, if you're watching, we'll have a link to this important information on firstcoastliving.net.